Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Mariano Alvaro, and I will be presenting along with my colleague Jorge Diaz. We both work in the database infra team that is in charge of migrations or of database access and of upgrades. And those are more or less the topics that we'll bring today. So first of all, I want to stress the importance of collaboration. Before, we used to be a company that only developed software, but now we also provide PaaS and SaaS solutions. So we have somehow become users of our own code. And using Liferay, we implemented some functionalities that we would like to share with you today. And since you are also users of Liferay in a daily basis, we think that you can also share with us important information, concerns. So that's why I have added the last slide at the beginning, because probably this is the most important part of the talk, because we want to discuss with you everything you like. So we will be here the rest of the day, but also you can email us whenever you like, and we will appreciate that a lot. So now, starting with the real presentation, first I want to talk about database migration. In our cloud solutions, we used before MySQL as database, but now we are in the process of migrating from MySQL to PostgreSQL. So the new projects will be directly created with PostgreSQL, and the previous ones are slowly being migrated to PostgreSQL. Don't be afraid, because this doesn't mean that we are going to remove MySQL support. In fact, many of our developers still use MySQL because it's really easy to configure and to use. So you may ask, why did we perform the change? Why did we migrate to PostgreSQL? Well, mainly because of two reasons: performance and scalability. Regarding performance, well, this is the problem that you get when you ask the AI for help and you ask for a performance picture, maybe not the most appropriate one. But yes, regarding performance, there is, to be honest, there is not a big difference when using a small or even medium databases. But when you start using big databases with heavy operations like message board, the CPU consumption really changes. So with MySQL, we use around 20%, but this number decreases with PostgreSQL to 3-4%, with it's a huge difference. And, well, I guess this is a better one, regarding scalability, that it's a consequence of the performance improvement. Now we don't need such big machine, because we have lower CPU requirements, and also we don't need to scale so often. With this, I want to make something clear. I'm not telling you that you should immediately migrate from MySQL to PostgreSQL, because I understand that each project is different. Maybe your company only uses MySQL as database, or maybe you are already comfortable with your project and you don't want to take the risk to migrate to PostgreSQL. But in case you decide to do it, there are a couple of alternatives to do so. The first one is using an external tool like pgloader. This is not the recommended one, but since there are users that are using this tool, we have documented it. Although pgloader is an extremely fast tool because it uses database native code, you have to do some manual configuration that it's somehow risky, because in Liferay, there is not for any type of column, there is an easy one-to-one transition between column types between one database vendor and the other. So for certain types, you have to manually configure those transitions. Also, in PostgreSQL, in Liferay, we automatically create certain rules to work with club columns. But if you use pgloader, you will have to manually create these rules. And the most important thing are the indexes names. If you migrate with pgloader, you can use the index name. The structure will be kept, but not the index name. And Liferay uses the indexes name to check if an index needs to be created or updated. So what can happen is that you perform the migration using pgloader, and then you start up the portal, and maybe an upgrade needs to be executed, or you have the property that updates the index on a startup. So because Liferay will detect that the index is missing because the index name is incorrect, you will find that the startup takes much time than expected. And the recommended way is the Liferay database migration tool. It's still in beta phase, but we hope that we will remove pretty soon that qualifier. The tool works using as database vendor, any of the database vendors supported by Liferay, but can only migrate to PostgreSQL. And it works on a two-step basis. The first step will consist on generating the database schema definition in the source database. And the second step will be importing that database schema definition in the target and performing the real data copy. So for the first step, as I told you, since it's still in beta phase, you will need to enable a feature flag. That the identifier is in the previous link I added in case you want to search it. And once you enable that feature flag, you can go to the system settings and you will find a very easy to use interface where you only need to indicate the path. In that path, the database schema definition will be generated. 3 types of files will be generated. The first one is the tables SQL that contains the tables definition. This SQL, it's only understood by Liferay. It's the same kind of SQL that gets generated when you use a service builder module. The second type of file will be the indexes SQL that contains information about the indexes. And the last one will be the report. The report is important because it not only contains information about the Liferay version, but also it contains which tables definition have not been copied. Why can this happen? Well, mainly because the tool only generates the definition of tables that were created using Service Builder or Liferay objects. If you manually create a table, that definition will not be exported because manually touching the database, it's something that we don't support. So once you have that definition, you will need to carry to the installation where you have the target database, and you will, using the tool, will import that definition and then perform the real data copy. Let's see how to do it. So you will only need to execute an sh file, providing the path that will contain the files that were previously created and the JDBC information of the source database and the target database, only adding the URL, the username, and the password. The tool is not as fast as pgloader, but it's fast enough. It's much faster than a normal upgrade from a previous version because it has been optimized as much as possible. So for example, each table data is copied in a different thread, and each indexes of a module are copied in different threads. We have an executor service with the capacity of the available processors of your server. So we can parallelize a lot of code. And the next thing I want to talk about is database partition. This is a very powerful functionality. We have been using it in cloud, so it's thoroughly tested. The idea is somehow similar to what used to be Liferay inserting, but implementation is totally different. It only works with PostgreSQL and MySQL. With the idea of a schema and catalog, we will name both partition just to have a common name. So the idea behind is that in a single database, you can have multiple instances, and each instance data will be separated. It will not be shared among the instances. This is very powerful because it improves performance. So, for example, assume that you have a normal installation without DB partition, and you are working with web content, and you have many companies, and you want to search for a specific article of a specific company. Then you will have to query and filter this whole journal article database with data from many different companies. With DB partition, Liferay will detect which partition you are trying to access. It will redirect you to that specific partition, and it will query in the journal article only for data, inside data of that specific company. So it will query among less data than if you have everything in the same table. It also provides an additional security layer, because now it will not only be enough to hack the API, but also it will be needed to hack the way that Liferay decides to which partition redirect the queries. Also, having partitions keeps your code more tidy, since the data of each company, it's going to be safe in only one partition. It simplifies maintenance in a way that, for example, if you detect that a company has corrupt data, you don't need to restore the whole database, but only that specific partition. And it helps to parallelize code, because you can parallelize based on a company basis. So you can have a thread per company, because you know that data is not going to be shared among the threads. And one last thing, along with database partition, we have some useful functionalities like the copy instruction or insertion of partition. So, for example, suppose that you have a database with 3 instances, and you decide that you need to extract one of those instances to a dedicated database. Well, that's very easy to do with database partition, or even the opposite. You have a database with one single instance, and you want to move it to an installation that has several instances. So that's very easy to do. It's perfectly fine, and you don't have any restrictions about the number of instances that have to be either in the source database or in the target database. And that's all from my side, and now it's turn of Jorge Diaz.
Okay.
Thanks.
And about database partition, one thing about parallelization is that the upgrade is also executed in parallel way. So you have several companies, each company is upgrading in parallel. Okay, going to upgrades, upgrade announcement for this year. This year we have focused on the upgrades that are failing because of not bugs that are caused by configuration errors, corruption, orphan records, or database inconsistency. For example, we have here an upgrade where the document library was not correctly configured, and there is an upgrade step for an old version that tries to move a file, and if the document library is not correctly configured, you have an error. So in this case, you will have to repeat the upgrade because there will be an inconsistency. Or for example, there are other kind of errors. For example, if you have an old entry in the database that belongs to a non-existing site, you can have here, for example, an upgrade step that tries to create, because some needed, it add an asset entry, but as the site doesn't exist, an error is produced. But this error could be avoided because the old entry could be deleted without any problem. To solve these problems, we have implemented two new features. The first one is the pre-upgrade verification. It's a read-only process that detects the problem before any change is made. It decides if the upgrade is safe to be executed. This was included in the Q3 version, so if you are working with the Q3 or newer versions, Q4 is going to be released soon, you have this already available. And the second functionality is the automated database repair. This will detect problems that we have before executing the upgrade. It detects problems that we know that cause problems during the upgrade and fix them. This will be available in the Q4, that I think it will be released in some weeks, so you can test. You will be able to test soon. And so it's read-write. This will be change your database. Going deeper to the pre-upgrade verification, how this works. As I said before, this is executed before the upgrade start. It's automatic. You don't have to do anything. It's a read-only process. It will check your database, and if you it detects any problem, it will halt the upgrade. In fact, the Java process is aborted, and you have an error. So, in case of failure, as I said, the process is halted. You have an upgrade report with all the verification that failed. And the benefit of this is that you can fix the problems in your installation without having to restore the database or the document library. For example, this for production environment where you have to ask to restore the database to another team, and the database can be big, take a lot of time. So this will save you time, as it will warn you the problems before you encounter it. You have here an example of an upgrade report when a problem is produced. Well, here there are a lot of problems, but don't worry, because there was just a test. For example, it detected that there was a missing table, that the database was configured with a wrong encoding and wrong users. And then you have here, this is also shown in the log, a warning that said that the server was stopped because a pre-upgrade verification failed. No change have been made to the system, fix the reported issues, and rerun the upgrade. So you don't have to restore it. Going to more detail, what we are checking now. We are checking the database user. We are checking that the user has permission to update database tables, to create tables, delete tables, and alter tables. This can be problematic for in some customers. For example, they give you an user that doesn't have enough permission to change the table. So this is very helpful to avoid having this problem during the real upgrade. We check the database state. We detect that there are missing, if there are missing tables, or for example, if in a upgrade a table is created, we check that the table doesn't exist, because that will be a sign that a previous attempt was done and this wasn't deleted. We will also, this is for Q4, this is the state. For following version, we will also check the columns of the tables. This is being implemented by Mariano now.
Don't expect much.
It is going to be merged soon, as Brian, we combine Brian. And then the character set, we also check that the database is configured with Unicode, because if you don't have Unicode, you will have some problems. Okay, more things. Company user, we check that the admin user and guest user exists for all companies, that you are not using properties that are obsolete. And also, following the example of my first example, we check that the document library is correctly configured. We test that we can read and write in the store, and for the local file system store, we check that because the local file system store, we have the simple and the advanced file system store, we check that you have configured the correct one. If you have an advanced file system store, but you forgot to configure it will check that the structure is not the simple one, and it will complain, and the upgrade won't be executed. We have two configurations. One, to disable the document library store. This can be useful for development environments because, for example, you may not have the complete file system in your computer, and you just want to test the database upgrade. So this is safe only for development environments. And also we have a flag to deactivate all the verification. We don't recommend this, but just in case you detect false positives, we provide this to avoid blocking you. But the idea is, if you found any false positive, please book a support ticket and we will investigate. Support will say you, yes, this is okay, you can deactivate the verification, go ahead. But first, open the ticket, because we will fix the verification if it's too restrictive. Okay, automatic database repair. How it works? In the same way that the pre-upgrade verification, it runs automatically. It's executed after the pre-upgrade verification, but before the main upgrade process. It will be read-write. It will fix all the problems that it will found, and it will track all the changes that it will do in the database, both in the log and the upgrade report. We are deleting orphan data. For example, all entries that belong to an instance or site that was already deleted, or record from tables that belongs to an entity that was also deleted. Data that is not used anymore, but in some upgrade step can cause problems. We are fixing the database counters. From the counter table, we have detected some upgrades that the counter was not correct, and then you have duplicate identifiers problems. So we check, and if there is any counter that is not correct, we will update it. It's consistent reference. For example, if we have entries that points to a user that doesn't exist, we will fix it to avoid having reference to delete users. And other incorrect data, for example, removing the Unicode null character that, for example, this in Postgres can cause some problems in some upgrades. But the point is, as Mariano said before, we are implementing additional fixes in future version. So please give us all the feedback you can, because we have some problems detected, but if you share with us your problems, we can also address it. You have here, very quickly, because I'm getting run out of time, you have here an example of an upgrade report where there are objects belonging to a not existing site that are being deleted, or metadata from the DL file entry that doesn't exist. So you will have this output. Or in case the user doesn't exist, in this case, the entries are updated or deleted depending on each table. We have also two configurations. You can blacklist a process in case you have a cleanup that it takes a lot of time because you have lots of data in any database table. And you can also disable all process, just in case, for example, you have a very large database and you think your your database has no problems, or you have already executed manually, because the last point is from Q4, you are also able to execute this in runtime. You can go to system settings, upgrade, and you will be able to execute the cleanups before restarting the server. So upgrades from Q4 to future version, you can execute. Jorge, well, implementation, I'm running out of time, so you will have here the implementation if you want to check the slides. And thank you for your time.